Point though, I say big, potentially big SEC news. The spring meetings are happening this coming week, Tuesday through Friday, where all the coaches and all the ADs go to Destin, but not for vacation. They don't have the family. They're not hanging out at the Floribama. Well, maybe Lane Kiffin will grab a guitar and go down to the Floribama, but this is a productive week. SEC Media Days is more content week. Everybody's in the same place, so we can just talk about football and just the quarterbacks are here and schedules and all that stuff, and all the media's in one place. The stuff gets done this coming week in Destin. This is where all the votes happen and all the rule changes happen and things like that. Apparently this coming week, in Destin for the spring meetings, what was thought for a while as a formality is not so much a formality anymore. Reading from Marcelo at 24/7 Sports, SEC administrators hoping for a smooth transition to an expanded 9-game conference schedule may face a stiff breeze of opposition next week on the beaches of Florida when spring meetings begin. Oh, I said Destin. It's Miramar. I guess it's a little bit different, but kind of the same thing. In that area, down there. Down there.
That's not where Top Gun is. But
this is where it gets interesting. And we'll talk about 8 or 9 and stuff here in a second. But the reason why 8 is gaining momentum is fascinating. Alabama is on the verge of a surprising endorsement for remaining at 8 conference games after Nick Saban voiced frustration with the SEC's 3 proposed permanent rivals for the Crimson Tide. Auburn, LSU, and Tennessee would be theirs. Should the league expand to 9 games? Should the program follow Saban's battle cry, the Tide would join forces with at least 4 schools in opposition to the proposal for a 9-game schedule beginning obviously in 2024. Administrators from all 16 schools, Texas and Oklahoma, will be there. They'll get to talk to people, but they don't have a vote. So they'll be there, they'll be present, but they will not actually get to vote on one of the 2 models, as you guys know, remaining at 8 games, but no more divisions, 1 permanent opponent, 7 rotating. Ole Miss and Mississippi State would obviously get each other. But the other 7 games would be on a rotating basis across the league. And the other, a 9-game model, 3 plus 6. 3 permanent opponents, 6 rotating. Ole Miss and Mississippi State would obviously get each other. It was rumored that State would get Texas A&M. And I forget the other one. Kentucky. That was Kentucky.
Keeping Kentucky. And then Ole Miss would get State, LSU, and Vanderbilt.
But then that changed to Arkansas because Auburn raised all kinds of hell because they were going to get Alabama and Georgia.
So
they found it unfair.
That's a fair complaint. It's a fair complaint. There's a rumor that if they do the 3-6, that Alabama wants State. And now you've got me. I cannot possibly object enough. Got to have the 8-game schedule if that's the case. I want the Alabama-less schedule just once in my life.
So let's pause here for now because this is a detailed story from Marcel, and I'm glad he's joining us today because there's just a lot here to unpack. But let's stop there. Nick Saban. Remember, Nick Saban, the guy that spent years during what we can call Alabama's prime, screaming about expanding the conference schedule, screaming about how, I'd love to play 12 Power 5 teams every year. Now is vocally advocating to keep it at 8 because his teams are too hard. Think about that. What a dramatic change in mindset and mentality from somebody that was so vocal that the schedules aren't tough enough. That we need more, we need more, we need more. And now they're about to give you more and you cry because it's too hard. What a twist that is in this story.
It's kind of surprising, a little surprising. Because, I mean, again, when you're Alabama, what hurts Alabama is this. Like 3 years ago, they wouldn't have made a big stink about it. Now Tennessee's good again. That's the issue. That's the whole issue here, is that Tennessee is good again. They would have been perfectly okay with Butch Jones, Derek Dooley, Tennessee, but they are not going to be okay with Josh Heupel all of a sudden winning 10 games a year, Tennessee. And at the end of the day, they kind of have a point. They kind of have a point I know Alabama's the best team, and they're going to have to play. Everybody they play is technically worse than them, other than Georgia. But my goodness, everybody gets a break, but not them. I get where they're coming from too. The other thing I've said is that there's these Power 5 games that the SEC has already scheduled into. State's scheduled out to like 2032 with some of these games.
Yeah, hold that thought, because we're going to get to that here in a little bit.
A lot of money you're going to have to give up. A lot of money you're going to have to give up if you don't do this.
Yeah. So the next layer, so Nick Saban is now crying against it, but Marcelo reported that there are at least 4 other schools against expanding. It's an interesting list. We'll tell you who's on it when we come back at Sports Talk Mississippi and the Pearl. So a couple of your messages, Alabama already has future home-and-home games with Wisconsin, Ohio State, Oklahoma State, West Virginia, Florida State, and Notre Dame. Good. Because their coach wanted that to be the case. So then if you want that, it's like my 3-year-old. That's how Nick Saban is right now. My 3-year-old will ask for things, and when he gets them, is disappointed at them because he's 3. And his mind is just all over the place, and he'll ask me to go outside. I'll take him outside, and it's hot. He wants to go inside. James, I told you it's hot out. But that's how his mind operates because he's a toddler. Nick Saban begged for difficult schedules. Now he's getting it and doesn't want it anymore. It's like my toddler that wants to go outside when it's hot. James, it's hot outside. Daddy, I want to go outside. Okay, let's go. Goes outside. It's hot. Wants to go back inside.
I get it.
Yeah, I do. Lee says most of the ADs and coaches do have their families with that in Destin. It's kind of a working vacation. Yeah, I hear you. But there's actual work being done there, I guess, is what I should have said. Lee also says only going to 9 if ESPN pays more money for the extra SEC game. If not, good chance they stay at 8. And yeah, he points out that ESPN isn't a cost-cutting wave. They are. But the only thing that's valuable is the live games anymore. So,
correct.
Kind of balances themselves out. So there's momentum against expanding to 9 conference games. Nick Saban apparently and Alabama are joining a list of at least 4 that are against it. Here are those 4 teams: Arkansas, Kentucky, South Carolina, and Mississippi State. According to Brandon Marcello, are against at least those. There might be more, but at least those are against the schedule expansion. Your thoughts, first of all?
Makes sense for Mississippi State to be against it. It goes with everything I've been saying for the past few months, that you want to continue to go to postseason games. You want to continue to try to be ranked. You want to continue to have 8, 9-win seasons. The 8-game conference schedule is the easiest path to that. It's the path of least resistance. The name I'm surprised isn't in there is Auburn. You would think they would be doing everything they could to not have Alabama and Georgia on their schedule every year. I understand how important the Deep South's oldest rivalry is to them, and you can certainly you'll be able to renew it every 4 or 5 years. But I can't fathom Auburn looking at that and going, yeah, we definitely want to play Alabama, Georgia every year on top of another team that they may get Vanderbilt, but what if they don't?
Yeah. And for what it's worth, both models, as we've been talking about for like 2.5 years, there are still publications like On3 that are doing here's what the divisions will look like when Texas and Oklahoma join. There will be no divisions. Divisions are gone.
No divisions.
This is the last year of the SEC East and the SEC West in football. It is gone after this season. So enjoy it while it lasts. Or don't, because it's going to be more enjoyable when we move on. But either way. Yeah, where I fall on this, because we've talked about this before, but now that it's coming to a vote, which, by the way, we will know by Friday, likely by Thursday of next week, what the answer is going to be, because the Thursday vote is the official vote. The Friday vote is the chancellor's, and that's a formality. They'll do whatever the ADs tell them to do. When it comes to stuff like this, they'll just sign off on it. But if they are going to go to 9 SEC games, but eliminate the Power 5 requirement, I think you might as well keep it at 8. That is where I have decided if you're going to eliminate that requirement, you might as well keep it at 8, because for me as a fan, I want as many good games as possible, just as a fan. I want as many good games as possible. But I like the fact, again, that Arizona's coming to Mississippi State this year. That's interesting to me. I'm curious about it. I like that. The trip to Minnesota later on down the road. That's interesting. That's fun. Ole Miss and Southern Cal. I mean, that's big time. That's those kind of games are fun and interesting and awesome. I would rather have 8 plus that one interesting, awesome game to where there's 9 interesting games and 3 against directional U, as opposed to 9 SEC games and 3 against directional U. You know what I mean? Yeah. If we're still going to have those 3 garbage games, and yes,
you're still
Georgia
9
Tech
Power
exists.
5 games.
Right.
Yeah.
So if that's the rub, keep it at 8, because I'd rather see these non-conference games happen as opposed to eliminating them for most of the league.
You know, State's about to have a lot more money. So, you know, everybody in the SEC is, because, you know, when all this goes on, the money's going to go up from the SEC, you know, go up quite a bit. But let's say that they go into 2024 and they're like, all right, we're going 9 conference games. We don't have a Power 5 requirement. All right, so State's going to have to buy out 2 games with Arizona State, 2 games with Minnesota, 2 games with Texas Tech, and 2 games with Washington State. That's going to be pricey. That's going to be $10, $12 million, probably.
And if you're one of those schools, you're not. I wouldn't agree to it. I would make you play me.
I mean, or you're going to come up with a punitive buyout, one of the two. You know, because those schools, especially, you think about like Arizona State and the flux that the Pac-12 is in right now. Same with Washington State. Think about the Big 12. You know, the Big 12 is going to be losing money because Texas and Oklahoma are going away. You think the Big 12 schools are going to be happy about doing business with SEC schools? No, they're going to squeeze them for everything they're worth.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's something to consider. And I mean, that's just Mississippi State. We've talked about it before. What does Ole Miss's future schedule look like? It's very similar. It's very, you know, it's got a lot of teams already done up. Again, if we go to 2024, you got to buy out Wake Forest, USC, BYU, Oregon State, Purdue, and Virginia Tech. You have to, because I don't think Ole Miss wants to play 10 Power 5 games a year. I don't think Mississippi State wants to play 10 Power 5 games a year. So you're going to buy those out. That's going to be a chunk of change.
Yeah. Reading from the story again from Marcelo, who again will join us here in about 40 minutes from right now. He said each proposal has its share of problems. The 8-game model does not protect some rivalry games like Auburn, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Ole Miss, LSU, and Florida, Tennessee, or Texas, Texas A&M. When the Longhorns joined the SEC, the 3-game model will ensure all of those games remain on the schedule every season. That is a downside. Meanwhile, though, on the 9-game proposal, which Haydad mentioned before, you've got a ton. Actually, only 4 teams in the SEC would be able to schedule out 9 conference games moving forward. Auburn, LSU, and Texas and Oklahoma. Everybody else has non-conference games scheduled, booked, and everything until at least 2026 before they could do this.
Goodness, when you look at Alabama, they've got some years where they've got 2. Looking ahead to next year, they have to buy out Wisconsin. Then in 2025, they play Wisconsin and Florida State in the same year. Then it's Florida State in 26. 27, it's West Virginia and Ohio State. 28, it's Oklahoma State. 29, it's Notre Dame and Oklahoma State. 30, it's Georgia Tech and Notre Dame. 31, it's Georgia Tech and Boston College. 32, it's Arizona and Minnesota. Same in 33. 34 is Virginia Tech and Boston College, and then Virginia Tech in 35. That's at least $20 million. That's at
Probably
least $20
more.
million in buyouts. Probably more. Ohio State's not going to be like, yeah, sure. Let's just, whatever we got to do to get you out of this. They want that game. They want Alabama to come to their stadium.
Absolutely they do. There are up to 38 non-conference games that would have to be canceled. 38. And I saw Andy Staples, who I like and respect a lot earlier, say that would be short-sighted to do this for the sake of non-conference games. But you've got to look at a place like an Ole Miss. Yeah, Georgia can afford it. Sure they can. But what do you think USC would say to cancel these games? You've got to pay this to Ole Miss. And would they be able to afford it? Because not every school, like Ole Miss and Mississippi State have a lot of money. The athletic departments have a lot of money, but they spend a lot of money.
Yeah.
Because of coaching salaries especially, Ole Miss's budget is really tight up against what they make. They can't just start paying buyouts for these games if the schools that they schedule are playing hardball. They can't play that. They can't do that. It's not as simple as, just cancel them.
Yeah.
There are teams on the fence.
It's going to be a big paycheck to cut for somebody.
There are some teams on the fence. We'll tell you who that is when we come back. It's claiming that the SEC's expansion into 9 conference games is not a done deal. You've got 4, maybe 5 teams that are hard-nosed, and then a few more that are on the fence, want to keep it at 8. Here those are: Auburn, Tennessee, and Ole Miss reportedly on the fence, and Vanderbilt has been industry silent on what they want to do here.
You can't get anything out of Vanderbilt. Coach's salaries, nothing.
Or competitive teams, mostly. But that wasn't very nice. I like Clark Lee a lot. But for a place like an Ole Miss or a Mississippi State, who are at best on the fence, State reportedly is a no, Ole Miss reportedly is on the fence. Because I've seen some of the reaction where people are denouncing the argument of, well, these schools want to make it easier to make the playoff. And the responses from the aforementioned Andy Staples, what, like the SEC is going to have a hard time getting into the playoff? Well, no. Alabama won't. Georgia won't. LSU won't. Ole Miss and Mississippi State would. So far, in the playoff era, what was it, 19 seasons? Ole Miss and Mississippi State would have had 3 teams combined. So 9 for Ole Miss, 9 for State. No, 16.
In the BCS era.
I'm talking about the playoff era, starting in 2014.
Okay, I see what you're saying then. 19 teams, not 19 seasons. No, wait, that's not right.
No, I'm saying it correctly.
The playoff era.
I'm saying
the playoff era has only been.
But with the 2 teams combined, Ole Miss and Mississippi State combined have had 18 seasons.
Okay.
And would have made the playoff 3 times combined.
Right. Yes, that is correct.
So if you're them, you want it to be as easy as possible if that's your ultimate goal. Because Ole Miss and Mississippi State not only don't win that many games very often, they also won't get the benefit of the doubt either. A 3-loss Alabama team would have a better chance, more respect, whatever, than a 3-loss Ole Miss or Mississippi State team. You want to bet? You want to let a committee decide between a 3-loss Ole Miss team and a 3-loss Alabama team? You want to bet who's going to get the nod? Yeah. So if you're Keith Carter, if you're Zach Selman, if you're Lane Kiffin, who I maybe he has a say, I don't think he does. You want the easier path if the goal is to make the playoff. Because I don't buy the argument that it doesn't make a difference for a school like the 2 we have in this state. I really don't buy that. Now, would it be better for fans and season ticket packages that continue to go up in price to have more attractive games on it? Sure. But would it be easier to have one less difficult game on your schedule to pile up wins to make the playoff? Yes. So I don't think the answer or the vote is as easy as some people make it out to be for those kind of programs in the SEC. Good, but not great. Arkansas is another one. When would have Arkansas made the playoff? When would they have made a 12-team playoff?
In this era, they would not have.
They've
never had a. Oh, I guess. Were they 8-4 and finished 9-4? It's Pittman's second year. Is that right?
So that would have been a no.
Well, I want to be sure about that. If they were 9-3, let me double check here. but
not every
they
9-3 would make it.
Finish 9-4. Not every 9-3, but you'd have a chance if you were Arkansas. You'd be in the discussion. But obviously, the rest, the playoff era has not been particularly kind to Arkansas.
Question on the text line: everybody wants the easiest path. Why would the haves want to change anything? Because they have more margin for error. Georgia's fine expanding to 9. I mean, look at their roster. They don't care.
Well, yeah. And they don't care about expanding the playoff. They know they're going to make it.
Yeah.
They know they're going to be in a 12. I mean, they're already in the 14 playoff every year. Why would they worry about being in the 12 team?
Yeah.
You got me looking through this now. So in the playoff era, Auburn would have made it once. I think.
One time.
It would have been, they would have made it in 2017 when they won the West.
Auburn, one time. Since 2014, would have made it one time.
LSU, since 2014, no. They had a game canceled that year because of the hurricane, I think, or something. Yeah, so they only finished 9-3. The 2015, maybe. 2018, yes. Obviously 2019, and then last year they would have been in. So they've made 4, LSU.
Yeah. So even those programs aren't doing it on an annual basis. It depends on what you want. And I'll put a poll out there as well for fans, because not every Ole Miss and State fan I know wants a more difficult schedule. Not all of them. Me, where I sit, I'd love to have every week matter more. But I know Ole Miss fans that are like, no, I would just let me win games. If Middle Tennessee comes to Oxford, I'll still go. Fewer people will go, but I'll still go. And I'll watch the team win, and that'll be great. And then I'll go to the Grove afterwards and pour a whiskey and enjoy a win. There are people that feel that way. And so I really like and respect guys like Andy, but I think that they don't exactly have their finger on the pulse of the fans around here as much as the people at Georgia who know they're going to win a bunch of games regardless. I just don't think it's as easy for Keith Carter and Zach Selman. I have a feeling that Ole Miss being on the fence as opposed to State being a hard no is Keith wants to find out how much more money. And he'll do a cost-benefit analysis on, okay, the schedule's going to be tougher, but it's $10 million more a year. Can't say no to that. Well, that makes sense. But if it's $4 million more a year, is it worth it? May not be. At least right now. May not be, at least right now. Dave says, how many Division I football conferences are there? It's 10, right? Power 5 and Group of 5. It's 10.
Power 5 and Group of 5, yeah.
Until every conference champion has the opportunity to play in the playoff.
Oh, come on.
It's bogus.
We're not putting the champion of the MAC unless they're undefeated, and they've shown that they can be right. Come on. Let's be smart.
You can't. You can't do that.
Yeah. Putting the highest ranked Group of 5 team, love it. All for it.
Yeah. And
if there's a second if there's, you get a year where there's really 2 good ones, you get a year where like you had a few years back with like Boise's undefeated, and I think somebody else, like maybe it was BYU,
Cincinnati
was
made the playoff.
11-1. Yeah, fine. Put them in there if they deserve to be in there. But to sit there and say, oh, they won the they won the AAC, so they have to be in at an 8-4 Memphis team. No, I'm not gonna get behind that.
Yeah, like the Mountain West champion, whoever that may be. The 12-team model, though, does allow access. I mean, for Southern Miss, for example, Southern Miss has had no legitimate access to the playoff. Again, I say this all the time. Cincinnati had to go undefeated 2 consecutive years before they got a shot at the playoff. There's been no access for the Group of 5. Now there is. Got to have a special season. Yeah. You don't even have to go undefeated. You can really only afford to lose 1 game. But the access exists for a Southern Miss now.
Yeah. It's not the playoff era. I don't remember who was ranked what, but I wonder if that 2011 Southern Miss team was the highest ranked Group of 5 team. They were coming out of the Conference USA Championship game, they were 11-2.
Yeah.
They might have been in the mix there. I said I have to go back and look at the polls.
It would depend on the polls, yeah. A follow-up from Dave says, then with that thought process, then we should do away with the basketball tournament the way it is and the baseball tournament the way it is. Here's the difference, though. That is apples to oranges. You can play four baseball games in a weekend. You can't play 4 football games in a weekend. The physical toll that would to do a 68-team football tournament, the physical toll would be catastrophic to these guys. Can't do it.
And on top of that, we just know. I mean, just have to apply some common sense. And that in baseball, mid-majors beat big schools every week. But how often does it happen in football? And how often does it happen? Once, maybe 5 times a season? Yet App State beat Texas A&M last year. What else happened? Who else? What were the other big upsets? There's one. So it's not, it's not representative.
And that was an A&M team that went 5-7. Wasn't like it was a good one either.
Yeah.